All right, gamers. Today I'm bringing you another key commentary video. We'll be doing a plus 15 Necrotic Wake with the usual crew. We have a Windwalker Monk, Holy Paladin, Brought Warrior, Enhancement Shaman, and a Red Paladin. Going into this first pull, this is a pretty common pull for higher keys. You go ahead and pull the Gatekeeper, the Vanguard, and a lot of the smaller mobs in the area. The most important kicks to get here is the Gatekeeper, because he does the bolt, well, and the harvester because he's got that very nasty channel. Another important thing you have to look out for is the Gatekeeper's channel cast, and you always have to press a defensive on that. Otherwise, there's a good chance that you'll die with combination of something else. You will also want to de-enrage the Vanguard. Looks like we picked up the spear right here. For the second pull, we have two harvesters and a Vanguard. There are three kicks that you have to get here, both of the harvesters and the Vanguard as well. So you can go ahead and assign those kicks prior to going into the instance. The Vanguard needs to be de-enraged, and if you have both of the Throwflesh assigned to you or targeted at you, you're probably going to want to use a defensive as well. Now we're going to go ahead and pull the pack that's in the back of the first area. This one just has the double harvesters and a lot of these smaller mobs. So there are only two kicks that need to be done. And as you can see there, I had both of the throw flashes on me. I'm pretty sure I popped a defensive there. Yeah, it looks like I popped Karma, but that was stopped with the tank's shockwave. As this pack is going down, we went ahead and pulled the boss. This boss in reality doesn't do anything, and if you have a prot warrior, they can intervene every single cast of that, so the players in the group pretty much take no damage. The most important thing here is to make sure that you're pointing the frontal away from your friends, and if you have a way to lump up and CC the worms that are coming out, that way you can kind of control where the green stuff drops, I guess. But here we also pulled in a couple of soldiers, and it's not uncommon for tanks to pull more mobs into this boss on higher keys, because again, this boss doesn't really do anything. The safest way to pull more mobs into this boss is in between the fetid gas and the heaving wretch attack. So once these go out, you are safe to pull more mobs in because there's nothing else really going on during that time. So now we have 25 seconds between the next thieving wretch and fetid gas. That's 20 seconds where you can be pulling more mobs into this boss. We're doing a pretty good job here of stacking and killing all of the worms in one spot, and we're also making our way all the way back to the beginning of the instance while slowly just bringing this boss down to see if we can pick up any more mobs. Having a prot warrior on this fight really just negates the entire frontal boss mechanic. If you don't have a prot warrior, you will have to pop a defensive every single time that you have the frontal cone on you. Otherwise, it will kill you. We also ended up pulling the Harvester into this boss just to get a little bit more percent. We're also stacking the worms on the Harvester as well. Some groups like to in-cap and ROP this Harvester, or if you have a rogue, they can sap it, and the tank usually picks up that shield right there as well. The shield can be useful in a lot of situations, so it's pretty good to pick that up. Here we're trying our best to move the boss to a spot where we can LOS the Harvester. Again, we pointed the worms on the Harvester. That way we can cleave everything down at the same time. Once this boss goes down, a lot of this green will go away, and now we just have the Harvester left to finish off. I remember hating Necrotic Wake whenever I played this dungeon in Shadowlands, but honestly, this season, this is one of my favorite Mythic Plus dungeons. There's a lot of mobs to pull. Every single pack has something that you can do. It's just a very, very fun dungeon.
I am sure he would gladly take your limbs as repayment.
Here we pulled the Necromancer, the Mage, and a bunch of the small guys. There are two mobs that need to be kicked. That is the Mage and the Necromancer. If you're targeted with the Grim Fate, make sure that you're using a defensive because this can kill you. Make sure you're not stacking that on any other player because that can also kill other people in your group. So if you have that, just stand still and let your party kind of run around you. There, our tank was lagging a little bit, and that's fine. We're pulling the Marauder and the Sorcerer with the Bone Mender. Here we have a couple of important kicks. The Marauder has the AoE Fear, which for the most part is something that the tank should always kick. And we also have the Sorcerer and the Bone Mender. The Bone Mender just heals the other mobs, and the Sorcerer does whatever the Sorcerers usually do. And also the Marauder has a Frontal Cleave, so if you're melee, make sure you're behind the Marauder. I've seen this pack be pulled into the pack that's coming up, but that's something that I usually see with a Broad Paladin in the group because of all of the additional kicks that they can bring. That just might be a tough pull if you're not in a coordinated group. This pack is probably one of the hardest packs in the dungeon. Narzuda can do a lot of damage to you. The tank can also die if they stand in the pools. Make sure you're avoiding all of the orbs that are coming out. And there are two kicks on both of the sorcerers that have to get stopped as well. Once those two kicks go down, this pull becomes very, very easy. So as you can see, our tank is grabbing the orb in the bottom left, and we're slowly making our way into the double Marauder pack coming up. Here, this is the double Marauder pack. For this, I would recommend having assigned kicks for each one of these Marauders. That way, no AoE fear goes off. We also chained the double Marauders into Necromancer. I went ahead and in-cap propped the other Mage. That way, he is completely irrelevant to this pull, and we only really have to get 3 kicks here. This is a pretty typical pull in hierarchies, because in reality, the Marauders don't really do much besides just frontal cleaves and the kick that you have to do. We're still burning these 2 guys down, and I guess I can talk a little bit more about why I like this dungeon. I think one of my favorite parts is the fact that you can pick up items in the dungeon that you can use at whatever point that you want. I always love dungeons that give you extra clickies and options and reward you for playing certain professions or certain races. I think it's pretty cool. With the spear mechanics and the orbs, you can definitely have some very, very creative routes. We went ahead and invis skipped past the Necromancer pack. Now we're putting the double Sorcerer into the Marauder. I went ahead and ring a piece the Sorcerer closer, got the kick on the other Sorcerer as well, and they're grouped up nice and tight. We're just going to burn this pack down. We went ahead and lusted that as well. I didn't have any cooldowns there, unfortunately, but that's okay because I'll have cooldowns for the pack right after. This pack could get pretty dangerous for the tanks because of the double Bone Carver. Make sure if you're playing Monk that you're keeping an eye out on your tank's health, and if need be, you drop a defensive ring apiece. We're taking both of these Bone Carvers into the Sorcerer, the Marauder, and the Bone Mender, and this is where I have my cooldowns, so it's my turn to blow this pack up. Here, it's a lot of the same. You have to make sure you get the stops on the Marauder, the Sorcerer, and the Bone Mender. You want to make sure you're stopping that Bone Mend that he casts so he doesn't heal any of the other mobs. I went ahead and ring a piece them a little bit closer. We got the kick on the Marauder. And now once this Bone Mender goes down, we're probably going to go ahead and pull the mini boss. I'm not really sure what this guy's called. There it is. Okay, the Skeletal Monstrosity doesn't really do much, just has the big AoE Frost Circle and does the AoE Swirlies. I'm pretty sure it has like a tank buster, but I'm not too familiar with it. But just don't stand in the Swirlies and don't stand in the Frost Circle. Our Retribution Paladin went upstairs and started the RP for the boss, which is a huge time save. Now we're just going to take this monstrosity up the stairs and just slowly kill it. Now we're going into probably the hardest boss in here because it can get very chaotic and very hectic very quickly. And if you don't take care of the ads, it's pretty much a wipe. We're starting this pull off with a spear. I'm going to go ahead and use my CDs on this guy. In my group, we have an assigned kick order for the boss. This is where the first dangerous thing starts. When the boss is spawning the ads, sometimes he can spawn the ads right underneath their wings, and you can stand in it and not see it, and you'll pretty much die every single time. We also have assigned kicks for both of the ranged mages that the boss spawns as well, so it makes it significantly easier for us to handle this boss. Again, we're doing our kick rotation on the boss. And as you can see there, the boss spawned the warrior right underneath just like the middle of the boss. So if you're not paying attention, you could just die to that. The most important thing is to make sure you get as many stops as you can. Letting one frostbolt go off isn't the end of the world as long as you stop the volleys. And now we're just focusing down all of the ads and making sure we get them down before the big cast. That's probably going to be the last final harvest that we're going to see. Still making sure to get kicks on the boss. Now the boss is spawning more ads, but we're just going to ignore him and burn him down. We're going up into the last section of this dungeon with 2 bosses remaining, and we're about 17 minutes and 30 seconds in. This is probably one of the more fun pulls in the dungeon. This is a huge time saver as well. Make sure you're taking advantage of those cleavers and you're getting stops on both the collectors and the crafter. If you're a real gamer, you can preserve the crafter. That way you can use those throw cleaves against all of the other mobs in this area. Well, because the cleaver does a lot of damage. There, we went ahead and pulled the parts into this boss. We have the crafter here as well, and I'm going to use that to attack the stitch work. And as you can see, it probably did 24-25% per cleaver. It definitely pays to try to keep them alive. And we're pulling the right pack into the left pack. We're trying our best to keep the crafter alive while also getting stops on the collector. That spine crush AoE attack can be stopped with a hard CC or a stun. I would recommend sending those there, especially if you have a melee heavy comp. That way you can get more uptime on the mobs. Here we really only have 2 kicks that we have to get, and that's just the crafter and the collector. Focusing back on the creation and the crafter, we got another cleaver here as well. We're going to use that cleaver to take down the creation, as it was at like 30% and it's dead. So it is a huge time saver. Make sure you're using those cleavers to your benefit.
Processing.
Here on this pack, you want to make sure that you're using the cleavers to kill the assistants. And if you have a paladin, you can get bubbled and stay in, which is really useful in a melee heavy comp. That way you get as much uptime as you possibly can. You want to make sure that you're bubbling that morbid fixation. And as you can see, the enhancement shaman got bubbled, so he was able to stay in. Here we have the last two packs before the boss, the gore grind with the 3 bits and the pack on the right. Here, the most important thing that you need to be focused on is your cooldown management. You want to make sure that you have everything available for the boss. That way, whenever you use the spear, you can do as much damage as you possibly can to Stitchflesh. There really isn't a lot going on. The gore grind usually just does like a frontal cone. Pretty sure tank busters as well, but that doesn't really matter if you're a DPS player. This guy could get pretty dangerous if you don't have defensives for him. Here, I'm holding my cooldowns for the boss. This boss does have an aura around him that just damages you. You can stand in the green here. It doesn't really do anything. You want to use defensives when you get the spew on you. And you want to make sure that you don't kill him near the middle of the room, because even after this guy dies, he still has that rot aura around him. So there, I would think I was supposed to get intervened, and I did, but I was out of defensives and I died. There wasn't really much I could do. So I'm going to get revived here, and then we're going to be on to the boss. The boss is coming down now, and we're going to use everything here. We have Lust, I have Zwen, Storm, Earth, and Fire, and my potion, and we're going to be burning Stitchflesh down as fast as we possibly can. We're just absolutely cranking this boss. We actually did some very, very good damage on this boss. Got him down to 31% in one phase. Now we aimed the hook at the stage, got him down again. The other creation was really low, so we managed to kill that as well. Now you pretty much just focus on Stitchflesh and make sure that you're landing the hooks from the creation on him as well. This boss is absolutely no problem. We're going into the last boss with around 6 minutes left, which is a very comfortable amount of time to kill this guy. I'm pretty sure you could do this dungeon even without the invis skip. You really don't have to overcomplicate it. Just hold down W and you can time this key. So this boss has a couple of mechanics. He's got the frozen bind dot, where if you dispel it, it freezes everyone around you, but paladins can preemptively freedom you, and it stops it from happening. Then the boss selects one of the DPS and sends them down to the bottom to 1 versus 1 and add. Once you come back up, you want to make sure that you're putting the dispel dot in one of the corners of the map. With Comet Storm, you want to make sure that you're stacking as a group and moving either left or right. And probably a good idea is to discuss this as you're moving up from the 3rd boss to the 4th boss if you're in a pug, because you have some downtime and you can make sure that your entire team's on the same page. So here I'm running all the way to the end to kill the Siphoner. This guy is actually pretty easy on Monk, because once you get him to around 50%, you can touch to death them. And you're getting sent all the way up. The amount of debuff stacks that you get determines how big the circle is that you drop. So there I only got 2, so it should be a relatively small circle. We immediately go into a Comet Storm here, so I went ahead and moved it all the way to the right. Boss is already at 54%. So we went ahead and got the Comet Storm. Boss is at 35%, and we have 3 minutes and 10 seconds here. Plenty of time. Just have to play smart, not make any mistakes, and this key is going to get timed. We're getting the Icebound Aegis down relatively fast in 2 seconds, not taking a lot of damage from this guy. I'm getting sent down again. If I wanted to really min-max, I would just run in, die, get B-rest, and just kill the boss, but I don't think it matters. We're just playing safe. Our goal is to time this key. Went ahead and got this guy down to 50%, clicked it, and I'm on my way back. I'm going to go ahead and stack this in a corner, but it doesn't look like it matters because the boss is already at 2%. We ended up timing the key with 2 minutes remaining. This key is really not too hard. You really don't have to have a complicated route in order to time this. And with that, I think I'm going to end the video. Thank you for watching. If you like these commentary style Mythic Plus keys, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. It really helps me out.